Hi everybody and welcome to this webinar, How to Get Holiday Ready, Your Festive Email Plan. Now, while we're just waiting for a few more people to join, I just want to take you through some housekeeping really quickly. So we will be taking questions during this webinar, so do feel free to submit those using the questions tab at the top of the player. Similarly, if you have any issues, do feel free to put them in there and we'll respond to those as quickly as possible. We have some attachments for you today, including the slide deck. So if you want a copy of the slides, do download them from there. There's also a report in there and an infographic, so do check those out. If you want to submit any feedback or ratings during the webinar, please do so. Any feedback is greatly appreciated and we'll take that on board for future. And finally, this webinar will be instantly available on demand. So if you find it useful and want to share it with your colleagues, or if you want to recap on any of the points that we mentioned, do feel free to watch it again on demand. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our speakers today. So joining us today, we've got Fidura from Dotmailer and Matt Potter from Movable Ink.
Thank you. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Skip.
Right, so thank you all for joining us today. I'm Skip Fidura. I'm the Client Services Director here at Dotmailer, and I'm also on the Board of Directors for the DMA.
And I'm Matthew Potter. I'm Regional VP for EMEA for Movable Ink, handling client experience and channel. And I think between us, we've probably spent too long in email marketing.
I was going to say, I hope you weren't going to put down a year. That would be embarrassing.
That would be bad.
Although based on the hairline in those pictures, we're definitely not young. Before we get going, we do have a poll running. So please give us your feedback. I guess the question is, have you started, or when do you plan to start your holiday marketing? And with that, so a bit of agenda. And what we're going to be doing is running through the lead up to Christmas, and then what some techniques that you can do, some strategies you can employ to help you deal with those things. And then last but not least, Matt's brought some bonus campaigns, almost like Christmas crackers.
They are. They're extra special.
So jumping right in. First, you may have noticed from my accent that I'm not originally from here, although I've lived in the UK for 16 years and have the passport. As the token American on this webinar, I would like to offer my heartfelt apology. Black Friday was never meant to be exported. I'm ashamed to be a part of it. I'm ashamed to be a part of the culture that brought you Hannah Montana, the Trumpster, Starbucks, and Black Friday. And so, as I said, Black Friday was never meant to be exported. It's a bit like American rules football, really. Something that other cultures can appreciate and enjoy, but never really understand. Black Friday doesn't make sense anywhere outside of the U.S., where it is, it's the day after a national holiday, day after Thanksgiving. You spent the whole day with your family, eating, celebrating the harvest. Not that most Americans harvest anything anymore. Watching American rules football. Generally gorging yourself and falling asleep quite early on the sofa. Here, it's just a random Friday where everybody seems to go just a bit crazy. At some point in the future, anthropologists will look back on this time in history and conclude that Black Friday was some sort of ritualistic call of the weak, way to make the race stronger and get rid of those who couldn't survive the crush for that iron or pan or whatever. But it doesn't have to be that way. Even in the U.S., there is a backlash to that's been developing around Black Friday. So last year, REI, who is a large retailer specializing in outdoor activities like hiking, camping, cycling, that kind of stuff, they decided that not only were they going to skip the Black Friday discounting, they were going to skip Black Friday altogether. Now, don't misunderstand. This isn't some sort of Scrooge approach to the holidays or the holiday shopping season. This wasn't, some anti-Christmas thing on their part. And they weren't trying to ruin Christmas for all of the retailers. They were just recognizing that for many parts of the U.S., this is the last weekend to enjoy the outdoors before the long winter sets in. And why would anybody want to spend that day or that time in a crowded shopping mall? So while both this message and the sentiment perfectly fit with the REI brand, they, like every other retailer, depend on holiday sales to make their numbers for the year. So how on earth could they afford to pass on the biggest retail day of the year? Was this just hubris? Was this just arrogance on their part? Well, no. They had a plan. If they were able to engage their customer base early enough, then they could not get in just as many sales and skip the day altogether. But even better would be they could take all of that Black Friday revenue and stretch it out to other days. So they were making just as much money. But more than that, the PR they would get with this strategy would attract loads and loads and loads more traffic and loads and loads and loads more customers, and therefore they would, instead of just meeting their Black Friday requirement, they would smash it. So the hashtag associated with this campaign, hashtag #OptOutside, garnered astronomical traffic or attention. 6.7 billion, and yes, that's with a B, media impressions, 1.2 billion, again with a B, social impressions. It inspired 1.4 million people to spend their day outdoors, and they got 150 other businesses, including some foreign, like Asda, to join in the movement. But as we all know, impressions are great, but in the words of Jerry Maguire, show me the money. They had to have a plan. How are they going to get that money? So, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, let's jump over to the voting. I'm gonna close the voting now. Last chance, if anybody wants to get their voting in. I wish I had the countdown music. Right. So, closing that. All right. Last couple of votes right there at the end, which changed the numbers somewhat. So what we've got is, when will you start your holiday email campaigns? 29% of you said September, 32% said October, 29% said November, 6% said December, and 3% said other. I'm assuming you started already, or you're not going to do it at all. But let's take a look at some other stats. You know, the stats around Black Friday and Cyber Monday are undeniable. And I don't think either Matt nor I would recommend as bold an approach as REI, although REI is a Movable Ink client. Mm-hmm. But what we would recommend is not putting all of your revenue baubles on the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas tree, right? Not putting all your eggs in that one basket and trying to stretch out that shopping as much as possible throughout the period. So we all know that Black Friday and Cyber Monday generate loads of traffic, and the traffic is going to be huge. In fact, traffic across the whole weekend will be higher than normal, which catches a number of retailers out each year. And it's huge across starting over. Traffic is big, right? The traffic catches people out. What you've got is 12% of people will also be shopping from their office on that day. So you can't just be thinking on Black Friday, oh, it's just about getting people into the store. It's also people shopping elsewhere. And you need to think about shopping in the office. How do you shop in the office? Well, you don't shop on your computer, do you? So you need to think about mobile optimization. As I mentioned, it does catch some retailers out. The Guardian euphemistically last year was talking about retailers that had some sort of loss of service. And when they're talking about some sort of loss of service and they're talking about retailers, they're talking about companies like Argos, Tesco's, John Lewis. Interestingly, I think if I do the math quickly, about 90%, actually bang on 90% of retailers will have started their campaigns by November, and yet a large percentage of consumers won't have even started to think about it. So 63% of consumers won't have been to the high street shopping by the end of November, and 49% will have not started their shopping online. So what you're looking at is 50% of your customer base hasn't even started thinking about Christmas until after the end of November. And that says 86%. That should be 8.6%. So only 10% of your list is going to do all of their shopping on Black Friday. And consumers are much, much, much more interested, I should say, or committed. Committed is a better word to shopping. Abandonments go down, and I think what we'll see through some of the examples going forward is we can help drive that. We can help build in that urgency. We can help build in that need to, don't leave this in your basket. It might not be here when you come back. Go ahead and take it now. But consumers do that naturally anyway. Abandon rates go down on both Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And, you know, we're marketers. We like to put labels on things. We like to name things. And then journalists like to jump on board and they like to name things. And, you know, what started out as originally Christmas Eve and Boxing Day is now Christmas Eve and Boxing Day and a whole bunch of other stuff. The events around holiday shopping are exploding. So, of course, we've got Black Friday. So Black Friday kicked off. And while it's always been big, if not the biggest day in the retail calendar, it's only relatively recently that stores have opened at midnight and have deep discounts across the board. I mean, in America, this was the shopping day, historically. You got Thanksgiving off, everybody took Friday off as an extra holiday, and Christmas shopping started. And on Monday, when I was younger, the news would report what weekend takes were like. And literally the entire Christmas shopping season, the forecast for what that would look like was based off those 2 days, because of course shops weren't open on Sunday. So Friday takings and Saturday takings determined what the rest of Christmas looked like. You know, I suspect more than anything else, this is these deep discounts that we're starting to see is really what's causing people to look at Black Friday not just as a day to shop for others, but as a day to shop for themselves. You know, 70% of consumers say they were buying for themselves on Black Friday. Cyber Monday is a result of the confluence of a couple of things. First, e-commerce marketers, they didn't want to be left out, so you guys have Black Friday, I want to have something, so we'll have Monday, that's cool. But also, it came out of an observation way back in 2005 that 77% of U.S. retailers saw their online sales increase substantially on the Monday after Thanksgiving. So these are the early days of e-commerce, and e-commerce was seen as sort of a backup plan, right? So the consumer would eat a lot on Thanksgiving, you know, store up a lot of energy, go out on the Friday, do a lot of shopping, find something that they wanted and would do some price comparison on the Monday, or find something that was out of stock and see if they could get it online on the Monday. So last year, the charity sector said, well, hang on, offline shops have their day, e-commerce has its day, we want a day. So after all the largesse of the weekend, let's see if we can make those consumers feel a little bit guilty, give something back. And actually the hashtag giving last year was the top trending hashtag towards the end of Cyber Monday and into the Tuesday. Well, so we've talked offline retail, we've talked online retail, we've talked charity. Why not small business? So Small Business Saturday. Now this actually falls between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. This is the Saturday after Black Friday. And it's not to be outdone, high street retailers wanted to get in on the act and wanted people to patronize small locally owned businesses. What's interesting about this is Small Business Saturday is actually a trademark of the American Express Corporation. So this is something that they kind of latched onto and made their own, which is, not to be cynical, but they're just trying to drive more revenue for themselves, as if they didn't take enough on the day before anyway. Let's see if we can take some more on the Saturday. But it is good for small businesses, so we shouldn't downplay it. Now, traditionally, the first Monday in December, so Thanksgiving usually doesn't fall butt up right against December. So the first Monday in December, this is the day, if you're like me, true panic sets in. So I've had the Black Friday, and my wife and I go out every Black Friday. This is an annual thing for us. This is when we do the Christmas shopping for our daughter. Really, we just go get a really fancy boozy lunch. But we've done the Black Friday, we've done the Small Business Saturday, done the Cyber Monday, and then we've had a whole week of opportunities to shop and a further weekend of opportunities to shop. And this is when I start to look at my diary and I think I've got, over the next month, the office Christmas party, the DMA Christmas party, the DMA awards, and literally every weeknight and every weekend day is filled with something, and I haven't done my Christmas shopping yet, and this is kind of when I start to freak out. And what you'll see is traffic all over the place just kind of shoot up sporadically, and people start to make really kind of panic purchasing, which then leads to out of stock Saturday. So this is the point where retailers will be sufficiently out of stock, both online and offline, that it starts to impact business. It looks like you're out of stock. Shelves start to look a bit barren. Now, obviously, as a retailer, one of your goals throughout this whole lead up to Christmas should be avoiding this day. One of the things that Matt and I will talk about later is how do you avoid this day? How do you stretch out your demand so you don't have the peaks? What causes out of stock Saturday is the peak of Black Friday means that a lot of stock gets shipped out and then returned, but it hasn't gotten back yet. So you're going to have it back. So you didn't necessarily have to order up for it. It's going to come in as a return, but it's either going to come in as a return before Christmas, but after this day, or after Christmas on Boxing Day, and it's going to go into the January sales. So this is really more about stock management than anything else, and using your marketing to help drive stock management. It's over. Christmas Eve. Cup of cocoa, lovely fire. Oh, look at the time. I know you're excited, sweetheart, but really, you need to go to bed now. Please go to bed now. No, and stay in your room. Father Christmas won't come if you don't stay in your room. Right. Down into the basement, bottle of wine in hand, for a little bit of my favorite activity, some assembly required. I love some assembly required. And if you sell anything that needs assembly, we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use to help me as a parent, help make my Christmas better. And then we've got all the joys of Christmas, and then we get to Boxing Day. Historically, it was the biggest shopping day of the year, and it's been usurped by the earlier days, but that doesn't make this day any less important. What I would say, though, is some of the importance around this day is about the customer service side. You got something you didn't like. How do we get that, how do we manage that return? How do we get you into something you do like? That kind of thing. And then last but not least, everybody's favorite, the January sales. Now, as I said, the events are exploding, and this kind of looks like a series of discrete events. It's almost like the summer festival season, right? You go from this one to this one to this one to this one. But it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't look at it that way. You should think about it as a journey. What you're trying to do is you've got customers, current customers, and new customers. You're going to get new customers through this period, and you want to get them from now through to Christmas in as easy and efficient a way as possible, both for you and for them. At the end of Christmas, what you want them to be talking about was, oh, you won't believe the service I got. I ordered such and such from somebody, and I knew exactly when it was going to arrive. They gave me real-time tracking on the delivery in my email. They let me book the delivery slot. It was just so easy. And then, the day before, I got an email telling me what other bits and pieces I might need to make sure that the gift was, batteries or whatever it is. The journey is different for each person in your audience, but the mode of travel and the destination are the same. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Matt, and he's going to start going through some examples of how that mode of transportation can work.
Great. So we get left in this strange position now, where the kind of historical 12 days of Christmas kind of falls into a 12-week period. And if you kind of try and boil down some of the things that came out of the stats, etc., there's some work we've got to do on when people will buy. Whilst there are discrete parts of this process, and there's discrete events that happen, and they're pretty evenly split out. You're not entirely sure, and we're trying to elongate that process, as Skip said, rather than having burnout on specific days. If we can elongate the process, if we can make it a more kind of considered series of events, then one, you have to compete less with other brands in the inbox on those specific days, and two, the kind of consumers are more likely to to spend over that period rather than just blow out on specific times. There is a consideration in the content about who they're going to buy for. So there's Skip said there's a certain amount of self-purchasing as well as gifting that happens early on in the process. Christmas is generally around gifting, and sales is almost solely about self. Although depending on how good the deal is, that probably gets massively skewed. There's a big thing about how people are buying. So is that desktop? Is that mobile? Is that in store? Huge amount of kind of the Black Friday-esque transactions are very much online, which is weird considering that should be Cyber Monday. But there's a thing there. I think in the UK we don't adopt it quite so much, whereas Christmas is very much and Boxing Day is very much around going visiting stores. So there's a whole thing around how we look at those questions. And then if you overlay that with what actually motivates individuals, people are heavily motivated based on discounting, which is strange because that's not necessarily how everything should work, but they are. There's a certain amount of deadlining, particularly when you're gift giving. You really can't afford to have things not arrive on time. And then a massive motivation, particularly around sales, is around scarcity. So these are the kind of areas we're gonna cover. We're going to show you a bunch of campaigns that will link to the build-up around these events, whilst you essentially have 3 separate events over this 12-week period, and they have similarities. There are tactics and strategies that you can pick and choose and apply to a number of different campaigns. So let's get back into them. Let's show you some of the interesting stuff. And we'll deal with the kind of the build-up. How do you build some interest, some urgency, and some real try and get people involved as early as you can in the process. So one of the first things we've noticed there is loyalty is really difficult. Loyalty across mobile devices has kind of changed things. So people may well see your email, they may well see your products, but the first thing they're probably going to do is price compare. So you've really got to try and work hard with your existing customers. And in this kind of world of kind of fear of missing out, I think if you can reward your best customers by giving them, in this case, we're giving them early access to Black Friday deals, then there's people feel valued in that process. It's not about, there will be no stock left. It's about, you've spent the rest of the year buying with us. You're a valued customer, so you get to see things before other people do. So I guess the first point is, don't forget your existing customers, because they're the ones who've been loyal to you all year. So now it's time to give them a little bit back. I think secondly, it's about encouraging people to act early. So the earlier we can get customers into that buying process, the longer we can kind of elongate it, and the less we can focus on specific days. So ASOS did this really well actually last year by having the decreasing offer, where you start off with a certain amount of codes that have a 28% discount, and as those codes gradually get redeemed, the discount slowly drops. So you're not saying the discounts are going to run out. You're not saying only the first few people get something, but you are saying the sooner you act, the better the deal will be, which is the reverse of a usual sale, which is the longer you can hold out, the deeper the discount gets. So if you can kind of flip that round, then you can start to drive drive a slight variation in the way people respond. And then the third point, when you really get into into these periods, is to actually use the products in the email to drive urgency. That fear of missing out becomes an incredible motivator for people purchasing. So whilst this is a Black Friday email kind of on the day from House of Fraser rather than the build-up, there's some interesting points in here. So the black circle you'll see in the content on the top right-hand corner has a number of products left. This black circle only appeared on products that were going out of stock. So I think the inflection point was around 20 left in stock before the black circle appeared, and the products with the circles on drove immediately. This is real time inside the campaign. So as that stock started to disappear, it was counted down logically in the black circle. So that's great. You can incentivize where there is still stock left. But then the flip side of that, as you can see bottom left-hand corner, is you can also use out of stock to drive sales of different products. So when a certain product was completely out of stock, you have the option, swap it out, put something in that is in stock. That's a sensible approach. Or maybe you can play on people's psychological kind of emotions there and show that there was something that was in stock that is now out of stock, and by the very nature of human beings, they want to buy the product that's sat next to it. So I'm sure there are a ton of Dyson fans there that were sold purely as a result of being in proximity to the product next to it that you couldn't buy. So it's kind of playing on human nature. It's not being disingenuous. You know, this is real stock content. And Skip and I had this conversation the other day about, you know, what would happen if you just put black circles over all the products, which might generate you clicks, but you might notice then that you fall off on the conversions, because if somebody goes to the website and the website does not show 12 in stock, it shows 112 in stock, then they'll know that the system's been gamed and you lose that loyalty pretty quickly. So it's about giving transparency. It's about showing urgency. It's about making sure that there's stuff in there that people can buy. But it's about trying to drive that level of excitement. So then you've got that principle of how do you build up a long list? How do you kind of increase the long tail here? How do you get people to, if they're not in the mood to purchase right now, how do you get them to early commit? And I know, Skip, you've got some comments on this particular one.
Yeah, so I found some great stats when I was doing my research for this webinar. 66% of consumers say they will get something that they don't want at Christmas, and 46% of them will fake joy about that item that they didn't want. The other 54% are probably children who can't fake that at all. So, you know, again, if you start thinking about how can I make Christmas better for my customers, one of the ways to do that, of course, is to make sure that they get what they want. And do that by promoting your wish list. So, you know, obviously, if you have wish list functionality on your website, start now with encouraging people to start building up their wish list. What do you want? What are you gonna, and you know, what are you interested in getting yourself for Christmas? And then as you get closer to, you know, the 12 weeks of panic, or, you know, maybe even Manic Monday, right? You send it out and say, here, forward this to your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever, who invariably is going to panic and get you slightly the wrong thing. You know, it works for everybody. It works for the recipient because they get what they want. It works for you, the retailer, because you sell more stuff, and you acquire a customer. And it actually works for that unknown customer at this point because you've done something, again, to add convenience to their life.
I think it's quite a nice social play as well. If you can get, you know, if you can get people to kind of tweet their wish lists, or which is quite that's quite a self-important thing to do.
It really is.
Put it out in my social circle, buy me some stuff.
Here's what I want. Please send it to me.
Absolutely. But it's a nice thing that is not purely about purchasing immediately, selling right now. it's a functionality piece on a site. It's an experience for for you as a customer of a brand. It's a service element as much as it is a buying one. The interesting thing as well is if these items aren't cleared off or purchased through that wish list, there's a bit of a nice analysis post holiday season where if you look at previous purchases and see what people actually got bought, you'll know what to talk to them about in the future. It's like a pseudo preference center. There's all sorts of kind of spin-off benefits. So it's a nice thing to not just go on the hard sell right from the outset. There's a second motivator here, which is more around deadlines and reassurance, and how to give people comfort that the money that they're spending and that the effort that they're putting in is actually going to be fulfilled by the retailer. And there's a couple of things here. So we've seen customers start to put delivery slots or appointment slots inside emails. If you're a grocer, for example, and you've got specific delivery slots for Christmas, which seems like they're full already.
We can't get anything in December, I think, at all.
Yep. So you may have done the whole kind of bottle of champagne in the shopping basket thing to kind of hold your delivery slot. Why not put live delivery slots inside your emails? Why not put appointments for gifting in there? There's a whole bunch of things that is essentially saying, help me plan out my holiday buying process. And as a retailer, you get some kind of forward booking, you get some forward thinking by the recipient.
Plus the convenience factor is huge.
Yep.
Just making, again, Christmas equals, for a lot of people, equals stress.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you can do to reduce that just puts your brand in such a better light.
Yep. We know when we get people in store, there's a temptation to buy other things. That's why there's all the kind of the gondolas at the end of gondola promotions and the things in the near the cash desks, etc. That's why products live there. So if you can get people in store, if you can get them to walk through the store to click and collect, then there's potential for additional kind of incidental purchases. It's also really, really reassuring for your customers. They know that they don't have to be at home on that specific delivery day. They don't have to wait for their person on reception at the office to hopefully take the products that's coming through. You can just go in store, collect, maybe do some extra shopping. It's really reassuring then that this considered purchase that you've been making is now something you can reliably collect. You don't have to relate. You don't have to wait for the delivery guy to throw it over your fence.
I've heard actually that a lot of businesses are going to ban office deliveries.
Okay.
Just because they don't pay the receptionist to be your courier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a fun year. Alternatively, you can have deals that are specific for in-store only. Whilst you're promoting online, there's options here. In this case, there's kind of vouchering that is in-store redemption. If you can generate a footfall, if you have a brick and mortar store, then we know there are benefits off the back of it. So whilst it feels like kind of the Black Fridays of this world in the UK are very much an online thing, it is an opportunity to drive footfall and therefore additional purchasing. I think this one's really smart and appeals to me because I generally put my head in the sand and gradually wait until the last minute. So having these kind of modular parts of your campaigns that will maybe give some service advice and say, in this case, if you open before or if you purchase before the 22nd of December, you just had standard shipping. That was all good. If it was on the 22nd, then suddenly your standard shipping is no longer good enough to get your products delivered on time. On the 23rd, you really have to go into super express ultra shipping. On the 24th, really you're stuck. But hey, there's gift cards. So it's about giving the consumer an option. It's about saying, I'm going to help you make sure that these things arrive on time. And if for whatever reason you've just been too busy, then I'm going to give you a get out of jail free card, which is going to be your last minute voucher. These things could be modular. These could be on all sorts of campaigns. It's just a standard piece of content that should sit at the bottom of your emails and keep reminding people that they only have a certain window. And then finally, when you have placed your order, we all love to do this. We all love to know that things are going to arrive. We all love to know when they're going to arrive. So, why not put that content inside your campaigns? That could be live inside your campaigns. It could be across a number of different emails. It could be by text message. It could be in-app notifications. It's just about respecting that somebody spent some money with you and giving them confidence that that product is going to be there. Also, there's an opportunity to cross and upsell in those campaigns, but those are the ones that people open because it's really important. They've spent their money, now they just want confidence in your service.
Well, and you can eliminate disappointment. So, I somewhat jokingly talked about, spending my Christmas Eve with some assembly required.
Mm-hmm.
But, knowing a couple of days in advance that I'm going to need batteries, or I'm going to need an SD card, or I'm going to need whatever, so that you get that moment where, somebody opens a gift, they love the gift, but they can't quite use it because you're missing one key component. Any of that kind of stuff that you can put into an email, again, just adds convenience, adds value, and will generate you many sales in the future.
It does. I think it's a good point, and it's not something that I've seen a huge amount of people do. So I think there's an opportunity there just to, if this is classified as a service message, then you should really put some really good service in it.
Yeah.
And that's not all about my box has arrived. It's about the kind of supplementary stuff around it. And then we have this this kind of aftermath section. This whole thing that says we've been through a bunch of buying, we've been through a bunch of gifting, and now it's about kind of deep discounting. It's about stock clearance. It's about how can we really create a kind of final push. And this can be really simple. And it's this one kind of goes missing, but really. Make sure the products that are inside the email are things that people can buy. And that could be live stock, that could be stock you've got loads of, it could be supplementary lines that have been added in retrospect. But there's nothing more frustrating than when people are clicking in an email they've made an emotional decision to buy a product, and it just so happens that product isn't available when they get through to the website. So it's a simple thing, but make sure that when people want to buy from you, they can actually buy from you. Some people need some inspiration. So in this particular example, it was less about buying the product on the left-hand side, which was a replenishment product. It was about buying the inspired product on the right-hand side. And there was a promotion involved with the purchase of both these two products being added together and hitting a certain monetary value. But really, it's about encouraging people to maybe buy something they wouldn't have ordinarily chosen. So by pairing it up with something they did choose, then you've got this opportunity to create kind of a secondary purchase. Create a bit of inspiration, have something a little bit different. And then finally, you've got to kind of close the window. So there is a limited time for people to buy. There is a limited time that people will actually show interest. You can't really encourage people to purchase every day for 12 weeks as much as you'd love to. So there comes a point where you kind of close that messaging down a little bit at the end of this process. So timing that content, say adding some urgency to say, look, we're really close to the end of this thing now. It's going to be done. Last push. Let's not continue that conversation. So the danger is that you focus on selling. You focus on selling all the time, and people get burnt out by that process. So what else can we do over and above the sales and stock related techniques? So why not try polling? Why not try doing surveys? Why not try getting people to engage with your content? In this case, it's voting on programming. It's live voting inside the email, so actually the percentages change as and when people vote. And there's some interesting things that happen here. So for the recipient, there's a kind of gamification thing. How are your votes in comparison to other people? From a brand perspective, it's like implicit preferences. Your audience are telling you things that they're interested in, without feeling like they've completed a formal survey and been checking off radio buttons and such like. So this could be people telling you what they would most like on their wish list. It could be people telling you what they're going to send back after Christmas. Best present, worst present. You can make it worst present's probably a really bad one, isn't it?
No,
but you
no.
can make it really engaging, and it just doesn't feel like you're being sold to. It's a kind of value add. And in the downtime between Christmas and New Year, when people are on holiday, and they're sat there with their devices where they're meant to be talking to people, it's probably a nice kind of break from mince pies and eating.
I'm not sure that worst present's bad. I'm just not sure I would do a social share on that. That could get you in trouble.
Yeah, share with your network.
Well, we used to throw a party every year, which was the unwanted present exchange.
Okay.
Because one person's unwanted gift is someone else's treasure.
Wow. That feels like it should be trademarked.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think it's a thing.
In this case, it's like the kind of the yearly zeitgeist. It's the what's happened. It's about knowing your audience. It's about saying not about being creepy and saying we know a load of things about you, but it's about saying thank you. There's a lot been going on this year. We recognise your business. It might be about showing somebody how much they've saved in loyalty points, how much money they've saved in buying discounted products. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but it's about saying thank you as a retailer for your business, and we hope you gave something back. There's always that aspect of people wanting to show the products they've bought. Wear the Christmas jumper, show the presents, show the Legos that you've managed to spend time building. So how do you allow people to either tweet out a success of some kind? How do you allow them to Instagram in people wearing specific clothes? There's a bit of social sharing there. It might be people sharing with their friends and family. Thank you for the gift you sent from whatever part of the world. Here's me wearing it. Again, not necessarily the thing you'd want to tweet out, but that user-generated content just adds a bit of kind of humanity to the process. So you might not want to be there. I don't want to be sat at a desk over Christmas. I'd much rather have a whole bunch of campaigns set in my email platform teed up, ready to go. I'd much rather have a bunch of deals running on the website that are pulled in on an automated fashion so that you can kind of put your feet up and actually spend some time with your family. So I think there's a massive opportunity to both automate the communication across that period, dive in and make sure things are working, make sure people are getting the right experience. But it's about spending time planning for that whole period and not necessarily making everything a last minute kind of tactical campaign. Yes, you might need to do some price matching, you might need to do some interesting things like that. But really, the more you can plan in advance, the more you can automate, the less time you'll spend doing, and the more time you'll spend kind of relaxing with friends and family, and as a retailer watching, hopefully the money come in.
We actually at Dotmailer we have a word for that called upstream. We call it upstream automation. So downstream automation is kind of what everybody thinks about with regards to marketing automation. A customer does X and I respond with some message because of that. But upstream automation is anything I can do to make the process of creating the campaign faster and easier. So a lot of things that you've been talking about, pulling in live data feeds from other places. Great example of upstream automation. Scheduling a campaign to go when you're not there. Another great example of upstream automation. You still have to do the work.
Yep.
But because a lot of the content in the email is populated in real time at the point of open, you've basically built an email with some empty content blocks that are just waiting to be filled when it finally goes out.
Yeah, and that's exactly the case here. It's the kind of the deals and the decisioning's already been made on the website. You spend a lot of time and effort putting content onto a website as a destination, and then maybe don't spend sufficient time having kind of continuity between the email and that piece of destination content. So if you can recycle website content inside your email in a proactive fashion, then that feels like a good thing. And then finally, which kind of bookends the process there, try and do something different. It was a great example from REI, and I think it would be good if people could could stay outside, if they could go spend time with family, if you can step outside of the confines of these kind of discrete shopping periods and try and do something different, then you'll spend less time competing, and more time kind of separating. You could have the best email campaign in the world, but if there's 100 other campaigns in my inbox at the same time, you've just got less chance of that being seen. So if you can think slightly differently, then you've got more chance of engaging with the audience, I think. So I think in conclusion, the whole season is the season of goodwill, and it is about, whilst as a retailer or whatever sector you're in, it's about generating money. It's a really important time of year. The experience really is about consumers. They have a tough time over that 12-week period. They're bombarded with things, and if you can create that slightly different experience, then I think the rewards off the back of that should be something special.
All right, questions? Okay. Somebody is sending their first Christmas email on Friday. Well, good for them.
Well, or received their first Christmas email last Friday, but hopefully.
Well, either way.
Whichever way, yeah.
Some marketer got it right.
Yay.
Okay, so one of the questions is, can you tell us where the stats came from? I can tell you where each of the stats came from. They came from a wide variety of places. What I can do is we'll add a slide with attributions afterwards, so look out for that. And I think we're just about out of time. So I want to say, Matt, thanks very much for coming along. Hopefully everybody in the audience found this great. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, give us a tweet or put questions up here, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.